What up, it's your boy, 69, Fortnite Master 69, and
I hate you.
and this is Pioneers Podcast, episode 2. I'm James, and this is...
Max, and yeah, this week we're breaking down the breakout decks of the format.
Yeah, so having an exciting weekend that has just gone by, our first ever big Pioneer set of tournaments, right?
Yeah, first ever like pro level, like official, Magic tournaments with the PT Brussels and PT Nagoya.
Yeah.
Really interesting stuff.
Yeah. So I think to begin with, Max is just going to take you on we're going to guide you on a little bit of a overview of the format.
A magical statistical journey.
Yeah, from just kind of looking at I guess the diversity of the metagame, which seems pretty good.
Yeah. I mean,
solid.
It's been a very interesting weekend, I think, and there are some obvious like big winners and big losers, and just gonna sort of like go through. It's not going to be like a super in depth like look, but if you have like a passing interest in the format, or
do you like stats?
I mean, there are going to be some stats in there, but it's more just going to be a case of if you weren't able to catch or watch all of the the footage, all of the matches or whatever, or otherwise just keep up to date what's going on.
There's a lot of coverage to catch up with if you missed it, because we're talking about two different players tours and also potentially the Star City Games Trios event, which had some Pioneer in too. So
yeah,
lot of hours to catch up with.
It's a lot of content. The landscape of the format after Theros Beyond Death's released, everything is different. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about Brussels.
Yeah.
There was nearly 400 players in total. 384 battled it out over the weekend, and some really excellent games played. Congrats, of course, to Joel Larson for taking home the trophy with his sweet Sultai Delirium list.
I think it's Joel Larson, right?
Okay. Joel Larson. Yeah, he's Swedish, right? Because like his Swedish Delirium list. Joel Larson was. It's like a super rad deck list. We're not going to talk about it necessarily too much in too great a detail, because like it's not necessarily like indicative of where the format seems to be going as a whole and the sort of the general trends, but it's
sweet. It's a sweet list. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah,
very nice.
And the fact that it won is definitely like a good sign for the format as a whole.
Oh yeah. We'll get onto that a bit later, I think.
So Brussels, first of all, in the top 8, we had 7, a mighty 7. I did have to check then. I was like,
good,
7.
solid counting. 7 different
decks amongst the top 8. The only doubled up deck was Bant Spirits, which I don't necessarily...
A surprise.
Yeah, I don't think anyone sort of going into that, I think you could have asked, a variety of pundits, a variety of pros, and said, look, okay, there's going to be, 7 different decks amongst the top 8, which, what's the archetype that's going to be doubled up? I think you'd have a range of guesses, and I do not think many of them would guess Bant Spirits.
I think, if you, just as a side note, if you're not 100% familiar with the decks we're talking about, we are going to go into them in a little more detail later on. We're just kind of sort of giving an overview of where the metagame's at the moment, or from this weekend, so...
Yeah, anything that we're sort of like just sort of brushing over now, we're likely going to go into in a lot more detail later on. So so there's 3. There's a good range in total as well. It wasn't like it was like 8 different flavors of aggro deck or 8 different flavors of combo decks.
Or one of that lovely. We had the PT standard, which was like 7 copies of Boros aggro. There's like 24 copies of Healer's Hawk in the top 8.
The mono white, the Louis Scott Vargas Settler Extravaganza one.
I made fun of my friend for thinking that Healer's Hawk was good. He was like hyped up on Healer's Hawk. He's like, this card's great. I absolutely love it. I'm like, it's just a 1/1 flying man with lifelink. It sucks, and then bam, hundreds of copies show up. It's like,
you've got cards like what was it, the Venerated Loxodon that just had like quote unquote like affinity for creatures, doesn't it? You just wanted to jam as many 1-drops as possible. So you've got 3 different aggro decks were present. So there was mono black, mono red, and that Bant Spirits deck that we talked about.
Kind of counts as an aggro deck, yeah. So
yeah, banned spirits, I'd say aggro-ish. I think if you're gonna classify it anywhere, there's two different mid-range decks, two completely different approaches to how you can build mid-range in the format.
Yeah.
With Bring to Niv and the Sultai Delirium list that we touched on from Joel Larson.
Four color draft res and five color draft res and
exactly.
Just your more traditional pile of rock cards.
Yeah. And then we've got two different combo decks, two completely different ways of abusing Vass's Oracle, with Lotus Breach and Dimir Inverter as two very exciting decks that we will get onto later. We definitely have a lot to say, especially about Dimir Inverter.
I have opinions.
So of the four most popular decks at the beginning of the tournament, so Mono Black, Dimir Inverter, Bring to Niv, and Azorius Control, three of them performed pretty well. With the one that didn't being Azorius Control.
I cry every time.
Yeah, it's a blow to both of us, as both of us have that variant of that deck built, and I think it was just in the top four for like most popular, and then it had I think when the average deck had a sort of like a 33% sort of conversion to day two, I think Azorius Control had somewhere in like the low 20s. So it was
I feel like it was just quite a hostile field for a control like a more traditional control deck. You've got the combo decks where a lot of your like removal doesn't line up particularly well, and you've got a lot of quite fast aggro decks looking to beat the combo decks, or fast and disruptive aggro decks looking to beat the combo decks, which also just happen to be quite good against what you're trying to do as well. So it's
yeah. Oh, and not only that, but then even the sort of the traditional mid-range decks that you like prey upon normally are like packing stuff like main deck Slaughter Games.
Oh yeah, they can go and they can grind you out pretty just as effectively as you can a lot of the time. So yeah, hostile environment for control.
Yeah, I think Louis Scott Vargas as well was looking, because there's another event this weekend, and he really wanted. He tweeted recently that he wanted to play Azorius Control for it, but he just decided the meta is too hostile.
Yeah. So that won't stop me though. That won't stop me from casting.
I mean,
Teferi
but when
and Big
has
Teferi
using the correct deck ever stopped you?
Yeah, no.
Yeah. And the trends of that. So we've seen like a diverse format where the only thing that really has seemed to suffer being control, but mid-range is doing well, aggro is doing very well, combos obviously doing very well, and that wasn't just present within the top 8. It was present at the top sort of 40, the top 20 tables. You've got 12 different archetypes amongst them from the sort of Magic Esports official kind of Twitter. So that's a really, really good sign to me that there are a lot of different ways of competing at the kind of highest levels of this format. That it is by no means solved. There's a lot of different things that you can do. Yeah. And there did seem to be a good range of decks making it to day two, rather than it being a completely
at least
lopsided affair.
At least in Brussels.
Yes.
However,
all of this is going absolutely swimmingly, and I'm going to tell you that Pioneer is the dream format, but then we get to PT Nagoya, where everything goes a little bit wrong. It almost goes, you can sort of take the health of the format and invert it.
Oh, very nice, very nice.
So you've got in PT Nagoya we had a top 8 that was 5 out of 8 Dimir Inverter. That's that blue-black combo deck that again we'll get into shortly.
Don't you just love Eldrazi? Aren't they just great? Whenever they show up in large numbers, isn't it just wonderful?
Yeah, they are sort of like that really like eldritch horror. They're just sort of consuming formats slowly but surely. Just
yeah. Do you remember when Eldrazi used to cost a lot of mana?
It's like, what? Let's make all the playable ones that are going to dominate constructed cost 4.
Yeah.
With the was it Oh yeah, I've just realised that you've got stuff like Thought Not Sierra legal in this format, but obviously they don't see play because you haven't got any ways of like cheating them out with lands that tap for 2.
Yeah,
that's interesting. But yeah, firstly, congratulations to Kenta Harane. I'm so sorry if I'm pronouncing the name incorrectly. I likely am. Who took home the trophy with his Bant Spirits list. It was really, really cool. Actually, like obviously a standard list, but again, very.
No, there was a spicy meatball in the sideboard.
There was, Ken Yukihiro with his Orzhov SRAM Auras deck.
No, I meant in the sideboard of the Bant Spirits list that won. There was a tasty morsel in there. Did you see what it was?
No, I didn't spot it.
Dude, he had sideboard permeating mass.
Oh, what is that? The 1/3 from not Throne of Eldraine, Eldritch Moon.
Yeah. So it's a 1-mana 1/3 green creature. When it deals combat damage to another creature, that creature becomes a copy of permeating mass.
Right.
But it's a spirit. So
all of your crappy 1/3s are better than your opponent's crappy 1/3s?
Yeah, because eventually just every card becomes a copy that blocks it becomes a copy. So it's this weird like way to if your opponent's like, in a forced to block situation, it kind of like removes their like problematic creatures in just the most like wacky way possible.
Oh wow.
But if you as long as your lords stay active, you have like a slightly you have a 2/4 and they have a 1/3.
The constructed all-star permeating mass. Okay, buy up your copies now. Soon to spike and become highly sought after.
Oh, it's wonderful. But sorry, no, you were excited about the was it second place? Did you say?
Yeah. So Ken Yukihiro. So it's basically like a Japanese saffron olive, just like just coming in there with these incredibly like off the wall brews. So it uses SRAM. So SRAM is a 1 and a white for a 2/2 from Kaladesh.
Yeah.
Like a dwarf artificer, I believe. Might be like a dwarf advisor. I imagine he's an artificer. And whenever you play an aura, vehicle, or equipment spell, you draw a card.
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of like equipment style eggs decks have used him as like an engine before, where you play a lot of like 0 like cost equipment and draw a load of cards and like try and combo off.
Yeah.
But like this deck like tried to leverage SRAM and like the new like Hateful Eidolon from
Theros Beyond Death.
Theros Beyond Death is like whenever an enchanted creature dies, you draw a card for each aura you control that was enchanted to it and stuff. And just played this like really like sort of interesting
Bogglesy without the hexproof kind of game. I'll be honest. On paper, this deck looks like absolute garbage. I have no idea how he managed to make it to second place. But you know what? Yeah. Like he's there second placing a Pro Tour, and I'm here not doing that thing. So
yeah, in a sea of Dimir Inverter, Ken Yukihiro is our Yukihiro.
What a very nice. What a trooper to just like pilot this just like decent looking draft deck to like a second place PT finish amongst a bunch of degenerate combo stuff. So good
absolutely amazing.
Good hustle.
So then we actually have to look at the rest. So we've got Bant Spirits, SRAM Auras, and then like Leaden Nettle right at the bottom, like a mono black vampires deck. Yeah. But so the rest is Dimir Inverter. So it represented 20% of the day one metagame, Dimir Inverter, and yet by day two, it was closer to 30%. So, like 1 in 5 people took it to the tournament. 1 in 3 of those actually made it to I'm getting it wrong, but yeah, basically it made day 2 at an above average rate, significantly above average. Then when you actually look at to top 8 conversion, it making up 5 out of the 8, that's way more than you would expect.
Yeah, that's pretty
so it suggests that definitely, at least in this tournament, Dimir Inverter is a problem. And other decks, again, at least in Nagoya, weren't able to compensate to overcome the deck. Yeah. So yeah, it did really, really well. And I think that's the main sort of takeaways I want to say. Like, we're going to talk about a little bit about some of the matchup data and stuff, and how various decks performed against other decks later on in the podcast. But yeah, I think that for the most part, I think we can walk away from those tournaments. I would say that Brussels is more indicative of the format's health than Nagoya, because it's about twice the size.
Yeah.
I think that that's Magic sort of event size is a very, very good way of like filtering out, decks. Are they good? Are they actually, can they hold up to water? And, after that many rounds and so on, and that many like good players all in one place. Mm. So I would lean towards the format being in a healthy place, with a big sort of, asterisk with like maybe Inverter is a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, speaking of which,
I was going to say, bam, transition into the next topic, which is just breaking down the decks that were present at the weekend and going into detail a little bit more. And I mean, it makes sense to just address the big Eldrazi elephant in the room first, right? Because that's what we've been talking about. That guy is, or that deck, sorry, is Dimir Inverter. So this is kind of like a blue-back kind of combo control kind of deck, I want to say. Mm-hmm. With one of the, the namesake is Inverter of Truth. So how does this thing win? It's a big 4-mana, 6/6, flying Eldrazi that's devoid, which actually can come up on occasion. When Inverter of Truth enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your library face down, then shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library. I mean, that seems bad. That seems bad, right? You don't want to get rid of your whole library, do you?
Yeah, traditionally that's where you keep your spells, right?
Yeah, in your pocket. But this happens to play very well with the other half, which is Thassa's Oracle, which you've probably seen before, but we're gonna read this little book together. It's a lot of text on this card. Yeah, it's a blue 1/3 creature. When Thassa's Oracle enters the battlefield, look at the top X cards of your library, where X is your devotion to blue. Put up to one of them on the top of your library, and the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. If X is greater than or equal to the number of cards in your library, you win the game. So the deck's kind of basic plan is to flip over its library with Inverter of Truth, and then win by either playing a Thassa's Oracle or have the other redundant piece of it, which is Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, who's 4-mana Planeswalker, blue, and a colorless. He has a passive. If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, you win the game instead. So we're seeing a recurring theme here. Mm-hmm. His +1, target player puts the top 2 cards of their library into their graveyard, draw a card, and -8, draw 7 cards. Then if your library has no cards in it, you win the game. Again. So yeah, this deck is kind of twin-esque. I think it's not very like a hot take to say that.
Yeah, I mean, I've got in the show notes just like make super fresh jokes about Splinter Twin. It's just like a bullet point.
Here we are. I'm doing it. I'm living up to it. But I mean, yeah, like it kind of is. It's not quite as straightforward as Twin, but it's a little harder to interact with. In a sense. The kicker with Jace is if you he just kind of sits there on the battlefield with his passive kind of like threatening, so you can kind of well, I mean, for starters, that's the kind of basic you win the game package, right? Those 3 cards.
Yeah.
And the rest of the deck is then dedicated to kind of disruption and removal spells.
Its combo package is really lean, actually. Yeah. Like it's got those 3 cards, and then everything else is just like filtering through the deck to find them.
Dig through times. You got
which it can leverage very well in this deck, because obviously it gets rid of extraneous cards from its graveyard, so that when it combos off with Inverter of Truth, it sculpts its library to be exactly the cards that it wants in there.
Yeah. So it's the rest of it is very disruptive. You've got Thought Seizers, Drown in the Lock, like, you know, a bunch of Dimir blue-black interaction spells, basically. Nothing about that is like too spicy. But the deck just seems to be I've not had the chance to play against it in real life yet, I will say. But the deck just seems to be kind of consistent and good at disrupting the game plan of other decks while kind of furthering its own. Good at being, you know, it's got a bunch of fatal pushes and stuff, so it can survive. It can survive aggro decks, although that is probably one of its weaker matchups.
Yeah, so like I think the really like interesting and almost like pretty obnoxious thing about this deck is that because of how Inverter of Truth works, where, you know, enters the battlefield, exile all cards from your library, and then shuffle all cards from your graveyard into your library. So like that, when you read a card like that, you're immediately drawing cards like parallels between cards like World Gorger Dragon and there are some other like cards as well, these all-in kind of combo cards that like, right, okay, I'm gonna, you know, Doomsday. It's like, you know, there is a severe setup cost for this. If you find, you know, a way to interact or like get through my next, like, you know, play or two, that's it, I'm done. But and the kind of the immediate counterplay that you'd think would be like, oh, okay, when they play the Thassa's Oracle, I'll like remove it in response and like, you know, shoot it with a lightning strike or a fatal push, and then, you know, that'll drop their devotion to 0, and it's like no,
triggers on the stack. Work. Triggers on the stack already, and
triggers on the stack, and if they have 0 cards in their library, and if their devotion is equal to, because Thassa's Oracle reads equal to or greater than, you still win. Yep. So you can do this combo through removal. You've got redundant pieces with Jace, Wilder of Mysteries, and you know, it can also just play this, like James mentioned, this like good kind of like control kind of plan in the meantime as well, and like it can really take its time with with going for the combo. So, and
it's got a lot of you know, can sideboard into, you know, random blue black other win conditions, Scarab God in the sideboard, Thief of Sanity, Kalitas, you know, you name it, pick your poison, really.
I've seen like Enter the God Eternals. I think Autumn was saying that Enter the God Eternals out of the sideboard against aggro was superb. You know, 5 mana, deal 4 to something, put a 4/4 in play, gain 4 life. That seems pretty good.
Yeah,
like 3 different ways of stabilizing. Also mill 4 to feel room, dig through time or whatever.
Yeah. So this is the kind of deck on paper. I'm very good at falling into the trap of looking at something like this and being like, well, you just counter their whatever, right? You just counter the Thassa's, let them do their thing, counter the Thassa's Oracle. Sure, however. They have like real games like tend to play out. They've got like Thought Seizers and stuff to like disrupt your hand. So, you know, and you know what? They still have 4 mana 6/6 flyers. You can just die to them hitting you with 4 mana 6/6 flyers. That is a very real possibility.
I mean, I actually watched a game where the Dimir Inverter player had his inverters slaughter game. Unmoored Egoed out of his deck, and he still won.
Nice.
You know, just playing a sort of a devotion kind of plan with, you know, Jason and Thassa's Oracle, and you know, actually, I think that game they actually just leveraged, you know, Kalitas to just beat them down.
Sure.
As James mentioned, this deck does tend to, like, the statistics on average show that this deck does lose to aggro decks quite a lot. Like it's not like a dog to them or anything. Like it's not like absolutely unwinnable for the blue-black deck, which, you know, in this kind of range of reasonable matchups across the field with a few like very strong ones, makes it such a strong contender. But it really, you know, if everyone in your local meta game is like jumping on the hype train, you know, show up with a mono black or a mono red and just take
get your basic mountains out.
Yeah, exactly. You know,
sleeve the business.
You know, 20 mountains and go to town, I think. And you should be all right.
So yeah, this has got, because this deck has been so prevalent. I think you want to take a little while to let things settle, because obviously, like, the initial reaction from when a deck performs this well is everyone runs out and starts playing that. So I think you need to wait maybe a little while before you start going, well, should X, Y, Z be banned? Just see, how the like MTGO results start lying and stuff like that. But I mean, yeah, if this deck keeps up its dominance, then maybe it's time to put some eyes on some part of it.
Yeah.
Is there much more to say about this one, or should we?
I think like the Magic community at a whole has been pretty vocal about it. I think most of the deck seems at this stage to be a pretty known quantity, where it seems to be sort of straddling that kind of line between what is acceptable as best deck of a format, and is it just a little bit too powerful? Is it a bit too consistent? But that weakness to aggro, I think, is a really kind of important thing. And that if the metagame does shift to be more aggressive, and you've just got like aggro decks and these inverter decks, then I think
blue white control can stay terrible because all the decks are hostile to that, just as a as a side effect.
Yeah, but
ban this sick filth.
If blue white control goes away, there are some other decks that might come up and rise up through the rankings, like one that we can talk about a little bit later. But for now, how about we move on to a little 5-color dragon known as Niv Mizzet.
Niv Mizzet Reborn, the second coming of Niv. Yeah, so this one's pretty cool, right? This is one of like the mid-range decks of the form. This is
how is this deck good?
This is
I don't understand how it's doing well.
I like it, dude. This is they're just like, you know what? The rock is like your traditional mid-range, right? Green black, pile of random creatures that sometimes accrue value, pile of removal and discard spells. Bam, mid-range deck. Your classic. This one is like, great, cool, sounds wonderful. What if we scrapped all that because it sucks, and we just played 5 colors, play all the guilds, and tie it all together with Niv Mizzet Reborn? And I
hate it.
And the other part
I love it.
The other part of which helps fuel Niv, which is Bring to Light, which is so we should actually probably talk about like what these cards do. I've got Bring to Light up now, so so this deck's playing 5 colors, so Bring to Light tends to go and get basically whatever spell you want out of your deck. But it's a blue, a green, and 3 colorless with Converge, a sorcery spell with Converge. You search your library for a creature, an instant, or a sorcery with converted mana cost less than or equal to the number of colors of mana spent to cast Bring to Light, and then you exile that card. You shuffle your library, and then you can play that card without paying its mana cost. So it's effectively like a go tutor up your deck for a creature, instant, or sorcery and cast it kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So it's essentially an extra 4 copies of whatever card you're looking for.
Traditionally it's copies of Niv Mizzet 5 through 8.
Yeah, and then Niv Mizzet himself is a white, a blue, a black, a red, and a green for a 6/6 flying dragon avatar. Legendary creature. When Niv Mizzet Reborn enters the battlefield, you reveal the top 10 cards of your library, and for each color pair, so that's for each guild, choose a card that is exactly those colors from among them. Put the chosen cards into your hand, and the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order. So essentially, you get 1 card of each guild from all the cards that you've flipped over. You can't get 3 color pair cards, or three or more. You have to get just like a Dimir card, a Rakdos card, etc., etc.
And you can't get multiple of each, so you can't get like a Teferi Time, Raveler, and a Supreme Verdict, for example. You can only choose like one of those.
You have to pick your poison. Obviously, you take Supreme Verdict, so you can wrath your own dragon that you just played out. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, you've just played a Mull Drifter, but it's drawn you like 4 cards instead of 2.
And it's 6/6 rather than a pathetic 2/2.
Yeah.
So you don't like this deck, eh? You're not a fan.
I'll tell you what, Jay. I'll take on a story of like me like first getting excited about Pioneer. Okay. So I was looking through and trying to sort of gauge where I wanted to sort of take my experiences playing Pioneer, and I went, Saffron Olive's playing this like 5-color like Niv Mizzet Reborn deck. Oh, it looks super spicy, but like it's so expensive, and like it looks it's probably quite bad. I don't really think that I could necessarily justify investing that much into a deck. When it looks, so clunky and expensive, and then it's great. I exercise discipline in a format and go, you know what? The 5-color Timmy Dragon deck probably isn't very good. And it turns out that it's
You're
a
wrong.
format all-star. Like,
Yep. So
no, this isn't proper Magic. Playing the 6/6 dragon across 5 colors in a mid-range deck.
Yeah.
That's not how it's supposed to go.
Yeah, in a format no less where the fetch lands are banned, so your mana's a little harder to get going.
Oh yeah,
but that's powered
it's playing
by
like Khans of Tarkir Tri-lands, like in the.
Absolutely, and we're playing Sylvan Caryatid to which helps against aggro and kind of keeps your mana like actually you're able to kind of sometimes actually cast your spells.
Yeah, the deck just plays like Gilded Goose and like Paradise Druid and stuff as well.
Yeah,
just
a few fixing bits. But then the deck's just a pile of gold cards. You can play a bunch of one-offs because you've effectively got 5 copies of them. You can play Silver Bullets, which are quite cool. Silver Bullets, by which I mean just kind of cards that are good in very sort of narrow or unique circumstances, but when they are powerful, they're really good. So you can a lot of these were main decking Slaughter games, as a way to just rip out the half of the inverter combo,
or against Lotus Breach and stuff as well, against Mono White. You've got all of these kind of like really powerful options by virtue of just having like 4 like tutors in your deck.
Yeah. So and then you can grind out against mid-range and control decks by just playing a bunch of Niv Mizzets, drawing 2 to 3. Often you draw like kind of 2 to 3 cards, maybe. That's kind of I think where you're at. Obviously you live the dream and just drop 10 different ones and pick them all up and then discard a few of them. So actually probably you want to hit 7, but with an empty hand. But whatever. You want to hit all 10. But yeah, like this deck seems. I get where you're coming from. Like whenever 5-color good stuff like is put on paper, to me it always just it looks kind of a bit like, how do you ever cast any of these spells? But then it actually turns out to be quite like
when you have like that's the thing, when you have like a format that's like dominated by like Thoughtseize and like these very aggressive decks, and then also there's like a subset of like very efficient combo decks that will assemble their combo quite quickly and quite effectively and quite reliably. Just like durdling around casting like 5-color like value dragons doesn't seem like it should be a good plan and like a good place to be. But like, hey, it ended up like I expected this deck to be relatively popular going into the tournament, and then I expected it to crash and burn in its like day 2 conversion results, and it just didn't. It slightly underperformed. Like if I think each person, if everyone had an equal chance, I think it was like 1 in 3 people that showed up on day 1 made it to day 2. And I think it was like 33% sort of conversion. And I think the Nith Reborn deck was somewhere around the 30%, so just slightly under where it should be. But a copy made it into the top 8. There were copies in the top 40 players.
I feel like the longer the format goes on, though, like maybe the worse this gets, as like it becomes less and less viable to just like durdle around incredibly hard. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think that might be the case, but then like being able to like have those silver bullet answers to a lot of like the linear kind of like
in your main deck is quite
like being able to go and grab like a Nahiri the Harbinger to like exile someone's like Heliod. That's quite a cool little plan. And then I imagine that this deck will get crowded out as the eternal formats inevitably speed up.
Yeah, as what happens when pros get their hand on their format and they just fucking ruin it for everybody else by being like, well, we can just do all this degenerate stuff and it's really hard to interact with
you say that, but then Yoel Larson goes ahead and wins the whole thing with an incredibly fair delivery.
What a hero!
List.
Good on him. I really appreciate. He's doing fine work by doing that, because I want to keep this format like, for me. I mean, personal thing, but I want to keep this format nice and mid-range esque. Or you want a format where like if mid-range, like a more traditional rock mid-range deck is the best thing that you can be doing, then we're probably in like a decent place, I think.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Anything else we want to add about Bring to Niv, or should we move on?
Should we move on? Yeah, I'm good with moving on. What is next? What have you got next on the list for me?
So this is a deck that I've been quite excited to talk about. So this is Mono White Devotion.
Oh, yeah.
So it is a mono white aggro deck with an alternate combo win con, which is not something that I am used to saying in one sentence.
And who's powering that? Who's powering that alternate win con?
Oh, I'll get to that shortly. But it's first of all, I want to show you. It's loaded
I was trying to set you up to do a link so I can click the display so I can put it up.
Heliod Sun Crowned.
Bam! Look at that. There we go. Now he's up on screen. Wow, nice.
Yeah, just haunting Elspeth's nightmares.
Yeah.
So, Heliod Sun Crowned, he's a big, I say big, he's 3 mana. That's what I keep forgetting when I look at this, legendary enchantment creature. God, 3 mana.
3 mana.
So he's an indestructible enchantment. He is a creature, but as long as your devotion to white is less than 5, he just sits there as an enchantment. And he has the interesting rules text of whenever you gain life, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. And he also has an ability of pay 1 on a white, target creature you control gets lifelink until end of turn. So Heliod Suncrowned is a really, really efficient way to combo with the card Walking Ballista, because you can play a Walking Ballista for X = 2, have the Walking Ballista enter with 2 counters on it, and then you can pay 1 on a white to give a Walking Ballista lifelink, and then you can start pinging your opponent. And each ping that they take from the Walking Ballista puts a counter back on Walking Ballista because it gains you a life. And so you have this just a machine gun effect where you just nuke your opponent's life total down from whatever it was before to 0 by just having this chain going with Heliod and Walking Ballista. The deck itself, though, doesn't rely solely on that combo. It has lots of other efficient white creatures that all kind of help.
Your Thraben Inspector type.
Yeah, exactly. Thraben Inspector, the little 1-drop that when it comes in, it investigates, makes a clue that you can crack later, draw a card. You have Knight of the White Orchid. Well, it comes in if you have less lands than your opponent, and of course you do because you're playing a crappy white deck. You get to go and search a library for a plains, put it into play tapped, and so on and so forth. These Pips of Devotion. You've got Daxos from the new set. But yeah, and it's loaded up with constructed all-stars like Idyllic Grange from Throne of Eldraine, the planes that lets you maybe put a +1/+1 counter on something.
Nice.
Stasis Snare from Battle for Zendikar.
Oh yeah, the flash white X remove stuff? Or XX.
Oh yeah, it's not it's white 1 a 1. It's not the containment field.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, okay, yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's there. It's another one of those style effects, but it provides 2 pips of devotion rather than Prison Realm or whatever that provide 1.
Yeah. Okay. Very nice. Good deck building.
Yeah, exactly. But you also play Arcanist's Owl.
Oh yeah, this is the one that you wanted to go look this one up. Arcanist's Owl, eh?
Yeah, so it's 4 hybrid blue white pips for it, and for that you get an artifact creature bird that when it enters the battlefield, is it the top 5 cards you look at?
When Arcanist Owl enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of your library.
4. You
may reveal an artifact or enchantment card from among them and put it into your hand. Put the rest on the bottom of the library in a random order.
Yeah,
3/3. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a decent sized creature. It flies. It's 4 pips of devotion. It finds you both Walking Ballista and Heliod, whichever part of the combo you need.
Yeah.
And obviously it's just general card advantage as well.
You could probably also pick up a like you said, a Stasis Snare or something like that as well if you need.
Yeah, like a Elspeth Conquers Death. Whatever else. The other effects that you're running as well. So yeah, you just have this. Cards like this that just look so bad on paper, but actually this deck had one of the best day 2 conversion rates of the entire field, which is not a sentiment that I ever thought that I'd be expressing when talking about a mono white devotion deck.
Owl, yeah,
Arcanist Owl, Idyllic Grange deck.
Again, so fantastic draft card. Can I just say, I feel like we've said wow, on paper, this looks like garbage, quite a lot. And it just reminds me. So the first time I started watching the coverage, I tuned in as Riley Knight happened to say something like he was on Yo Larson's Twitter, and Yo Larson had said something like, "The reason Pioneer's so fun and so great is because all the decks are terrible." And it's yeah, man, that story checks out. They're playing Arcanist Owl, and it's like, wow, what a great card. What a great inclusion.
Yeah, exactly.
To mono white combo.
Yeah, it feels so silly that it's efficient. But like I should say, like, we're memeing on the deck quite a lot, but it actually can sort of, combo quicker than you think. It's got like Anafenza Kin Tree Spirit, so that like whenever a non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, you get to bolster 1. So rather than having to play the Walking Ballista X equals 2, you can play it for X equals 1, and then like have the bolster trigger go on, so that it has those like base 2 counters you need to start the chain going.
Sure. So, if they don't have any disruption for that, you can almost go like go like 2, 3, 4 as in turns. Anafenza, Walking Ballista, Iliod.
Yeah, and then just going for the combo,
and then you've got infinite. Potentially against decks. But I mean, decks are running a lot of interactions, so that's probably very slim. But
but the main thing that people forget about this deck is it actually plays like a really, really good aggro game as well. Like Heliod is, especially with cards like Arcanist Owl and Knight of the White Orchid and Daxos.
A lot of devotion.
He has a lot of devotion, and he comes in very, very quickly and swings really, really hard. They can race other aggro decks very efficiently because like everything in their deck seems to gain them life.
You have Nykthos as well, like a one-off Nykthos if you want. You can make a ton of mana. You've got quite a lot of symbols quite easily.
A lot of your little like scrawny threats and stuff, like have ways to draw you cards, like Thraben Inspector, cashing in for a clue, so that it's very difficult to just sit there and 1-for-1 you a Supreme Verdict. Your Heliod will sit through that, and you can and whenever you gain life, you can put counters on an enchantment. It doesn't necessarily need to be a creature you control as well.
Yeah, so you can bank them on Heliod for when he is next on or whatever, if you've got nothing else to put them on.
And just swing in. Then, like your sideboard, you've got access to like Rest in Peace, and other crippling cards in the format.
Whoa! White having good sideboard cards. That's pretty radical.
And tying this all together, you have that consistency of a monocolor mana base, when contrasting with stuff like Bring to Niv and so on. You never take any damage, you never color screwed for whatever.
Yeah.
It's that consistency and so on. So there was one matchup that this deck did very badly against, which was, James, do you know?
Can I take a guess? I'm going to take a guess because I don't actually know the answer. Was it Dimir Inverter?
No, it did favourably against Dimir Inverter.
Did it really? Okay.
It had a 20% win rate though, a real dog against blue-white control.
Oh, lovely. Okay. All right. We're on the scoreboard. Yeah.
So, what I think and why I think this deck is one to watch going forward is that, like, control is on the downswing. People do not want to be playing control right now. And if your main predator is on the downswing, it's time for mono white devotion to shine, baby.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, I personally won't be picking this up because this is just not my jam whatsoever. But cool. I mean, if it's good, if it's good, it's good.
Yeah, no, I think so. I think that's pretty much everything I want to say about mono white devotion.
You're happy with that? Okay, so
I'm ecstatic that mono white devotion.
You're loving it. Okay, because okay. Traditionally, the joke of the whatever format it's in, really, right?
Yeah, and now it's like a joke, but it also has Heliod.
Yeah,
like it's like a scrawny guy, and Heliod's just there, like like his older brother.
Heliod's the school bully, and the rest of the deck is leaning behind him, going, "Yeah."
Exactly, that's it.
Okay. The Arcanist Owl is leaning out from behind him, going, "Yeah, have some."
Yeah, I couldn't think of a better way to put it.
Okay.
So someone draw that, please.
So what do we got? What do we got going forward? What's the next one to look at?
Ooh, this one's a pretty complicated one that I had to really sort of look up the interactions for to really kind of make sure that I knew what I was talking about. And I feel like I know
I'm gonna
still get it wrong. It's Lotus Breach.
Oh, Lotus Breach. Okay. Well, the card I've got up for this is Underworld Breach, which is kind of like the namesake of the card. But this is your true. So we've got Dimir Inverter being a bit of like a combo control, can play like a bit of a long game. Has a bit of resiliency type thing. Lotus Breach is like your traditional Storm degenerate, absolute bullshit.
James, I'll have you know that none of the cards say Storm on them.
Yeah. But you play 15,000 spells in your turn. Like, it's just this card, man. Right, I've got Underworld Breach up on screen. Let's just get one in a red for an enchantment. Each non-land card in your graveyard has escape. The escape cost is equal to the card's mana cost plus exile 3 other cards from your graveyard. And at the beginning of your end step, you sacrifice Underworld Breach. So it's kind of like a one-turn, Yawgmoth's Will-esque effect, yeah.
Yeah.
Man, no one was ever going to do anything fair with this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you're not ever doing, like, you're not going to cast this for value, are you? Like,
no, this was invented to have like Johnny's and Spikes put their heads together and see how busted and degenerate they could make some convoluted combo deck around it.
Yeah, so the deck is then being kind of it's using Lotus Field, which is a land that has hexproof. When it enters the battlefield, you have to sacrifice 2 other lands, and it taps for 3 mana of any color, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's
and it enters tapped as well. It's like another like safety valve on that card.
Yeah, but you can get around that by playing Thespian Stage. A card that is popular in Legacy lands, to copy the Lotus Field and sort of double turbo power up your mana. And then you have a bunch of cards that untap your lands. So you've got cards like Pore Over the Pages, which is a 5 mana draw spell that untaps 2 lands, and you draw 3, discard 1, and draw 3, discard 2.
No, draw 3, untap 2 lands, then discard a card. Yeah,
and discard a card. Okay. Hidden Strings. This is the big one, which effectively in this deck acts like a kind of like a ritual almost.
Yeah.
Like a I don't know what like a poetic ritual, whatever those cards are called, desperate rituals, those kind of things. Basically, a card that costs mana and adds a bit more mana back to your mana pool than what it costs to cast.
Yeah.
So Hidden Strings just untaps or taps a permanent, and then untaps or untaps a permanent. So effectively taps or untaps 2 target permanents, right? But when you're spending 2 mana to untap a land that taps for 3, you're netting a mana, and you're untapping 2 lands that tap for 3, you're netting like 4 mana. So Hidden Strings acts as your kind of like ritual spell to just like keep the mana going and keep generating more and more mana. Things like Pore Over the Pages and Dig Through Time let you like power through your deck to find the right combination of cards that you need. And
Chronic Flooding is an important one as well.
So Chronic Flooding, I'll talk about it, but I actually had a look before we started, and a lot of the list have started just cutting Chronic Flooding out and not even needing it, or not feeling like they need it. So Chronic Flooding is I think a 4 mana enchantment. You put
it's 2 mana.
Is it 2 mana? Is that okay?
Yeah, one and a blue. Yeah.
You put it on a land, and whenever you tap that land, you mill 3.
Yeah.
So
that in concert with Underworld Breach just means that you always have fuel for escape.
Yeah.
So that as long as you've got like 1 Hidden Strings in your graveyard or 1 Pore Over the Pages, you could. Sorry, 1 Hidden Strings is the main one.
Yeah.
You can just cast that same spell, because unlike stuff like Yawgmoth's Will, the spell that you're casting doesn't exile on resolution. You just need to, as long as you can still meet the escape criteria of exiling 3 other things. So you can just like keep filling up your yard with whatever else you want, and just always have fuel to just keep going and going and going.
Yeah, you can effectively, so with Hidden Strings and then a Chronic Flooding on a land, on a Lotus Field, you can effectively mill your entire deck there and then.
Yeah.
If this all sounds like a load of complicated nonsense, it's because it is. Yeah, there's no other way to really put it, and the deck is essentially trying to go through its whole deck in one turn, get a Fae of Wishes, or make like effectively infinite mana, get a Fae of Wishes, cast the Granted side of it, which lets you get a card from your sideboard, and then cast whatever card is then going to win them the game. At that point, it's like, whatever. You go and grab whatever card is the most situationally appropriate to win the game
Oracle.
On the spot. If you can win the game on the spot, Thassa's Oracle, but you can also have a bunch of utility cards. They often will pack one of Ugin the Spirit Dragon, a bunch of random, utility things like things to hit, artifacts, enchantments. The deck plays absolutely minimal interaction in the form of maybe it's a 2-mana bounce and non-land permanent, and it's got Kicker for an extra 2 from Dominaria.
Blink of an Eye?
Blink of an Eye. It plays maybe 1 or 2 copies of Blink of an Eye as an absolute minimal form of interaction.
It sort of really wants to sort of put a wall around its board state and just have the opponent shout how much their life total's going down by, and just sort of whilst they focus on just trying to win.
Have you? Oh my god! I didn't imagine if Veil of Summer was still in the format and could protect everything. Yeah, I mean one of the big subtle benefits of this deck, I should say, is that the Lotus Field actually has hexproof, which you have Field of Ruin in the format to interact with lands, and you can hit the Thespian stage maybe as they make a copy of it, but once it's become a hexproof land, it's actually very hard to interact with their lands. The problem with this deck is a lot of the stuff that is good against it, is very, very narrow. So it's hard to effectively sideboard against this, right? Because cards like Damping Sphere completely shut down this deck, but Damping Sphere is totally worthless against almost every other deck in the format. You can get a few cards maybe I mean, I don't really know, to be honest. What much you've got. You've got maybe in a control deck, you've got options for some more counter spells and things, but they can kind of fight around that.
It's definitely the case where
Rest in Peace shuts this.
Rest in Peace is very good. I believe Graph Digger's Cage is legal in the format. So and that will stop escape, as I believe it says you can't cast spells from your graveyard. So Graph Digger's Cage will do the job, and it also won't get eaten by an Ugin. Although I do believe they pack other things in their sideboard. They have
enchantment removal and stuff in the sideboard.
So really the deck is very good. It's very complicated. It's a lot of times, I think there was a tweet as well where I know it was. It's been talked about before where I think there was one player that cast some stuff, they forgot they had floating mana, and then and then continued on with their sort of combo turn, forgetting that they had that floating mana, and then fizzled, and that lost them the match. So it is very complicated. There's a lot of variables, a lot of moving parts to this deck. And because it doesn't have any slots for interaction, it is. It's going to have weaknesses to aggro. It's going to have weaknesses to just getting thought seized into oblivion. The deck did do well over the weekend. It had an above average conversion rate. So it definitely I think is dangerous, powerful, and definitely if the deck does interest you, comboing off and having all the kind of a beautiful mind style calculations.
That's how you like to think of yourself.
Yeah, no, I do think that
I gotta say,
power level isn't the problem with this deck.
Sorry, I gotta say, even if this deck isn't tier 1, I find decks like this to be. I don't want personally the format to go this kind of direction, because this deck can win on turn 4, right? And I don't want this format to become Modern Light. And this is the kind of deck that feels very much like a probably lesser powerful Modern deck. Do you know why? Do you understand where I'm coming from?
I don't. Whilst I'm inclined to agree with the overall sentiment of I the individual statements. I think that the conclusions. I don't necessarily think that. I think this deck is a problem. I think it's really good, but I think that expecting everyone to sort of compete on a fair axis, there's always going to be decks that look to go right, okay, you're attacking with lots of creatures, you're trying to, 1-for-1 your opponent to death. Right, I'm going to try and go over the top. I'm going to make infinite mana and win with a Thassa's Oracle. I think that like having that element to a format, helps keep other people honest and go, right, I do need to pack more interaction. I do need to, worry about this and dedicate a few sideboards, slots to that. I think that having a few combo decks like this is overall a healthy thing for a format to have.
I am gonna disagree, but I have no reasoning that can really trump like that. Like it makes sense. I just don't. I don't think turn 4 is like where you want to be. Like,
but it does pay a pretty hefty cost for that, right? Like like you said, it only has like some,
it only has like maybe like 1 or 2 slots for interaction. Yeah.
Yeah, and so like it can win turn 4, but like to do that, it needs to be undisrupted, draw well, and not be dead. Sure.
The inclusion. I actually think like turning this into an Underworld Breach deck has made it much more susceptible to cards like Rest in Peace. Because before, there was still a Lotus Field combo deck before that was very similar, that didn't have Underworld Breach, and it was actually harder to hate because it wasn't relying on the graveyard as much. So it's kind of got more glass cannon-y, effectively. Like its kind of ceiling has got much higher, but its floor. So I mean, is there anything else you want to say about like Underworld Breach? It's like basically it's your more degenerate combo deck of the format at the moment.
Yeah, well, I think it's new, and so I think there are, as you've already mentioned, like decks are going to iterate on this and sort of tune it, and whatever it looks like now, it's probably in a month's time it might not resemble anything like that. It might. Who knows?
Yeah.
Exactly.
But I think it's worth keeping an eye on decks like this that have the potential to do this, because Underworld Breach is a messed up card. Nothing fair is ever going to happen with that, and I feel like there is going to be a point where it gets broken, like properly broken. That's what I think. So
okay.
All right. So what are we going? Go on, take us to something else, because I'm starting to feel the anger welling up.
Yeah, it is breached. Anyway,
very nice. Yeah.
It wasn't. Mono Black Aggro. Everyone played it. Most popular day one deck. A lot of them did well, so it had above average conversion. Relatively cheap to invest in. Appears to be a stable pillar of the format.
Yep.
Invest in Mono Black.
Yep. Lovely.
It beats people up.
Season's good.
And swamps.
Good cards. Yeah. I mean, this is it's nice. No, it's pretty straightforward deck. Resilient creatures. Resilient threats. A couple of planeswalkers, card advantage spell with not spells, lands with like Castle Lockwain.
And Mutavolts as well. It's basically like 24 different 2/1s that can't block.
Yeah.
and then a few Thought Seizers and Fatal Pushes just like chucked in there willy nilly.
Yeah,
and it's great.
Nothing too spicy, but it's it'll very often get the job done.
Yeah, so I mean that was the thing. Like everyone sort of went into this like tournament, and a lot of people did bring this deck. It was the most popular sort of choice for the weekend. But yeah, it held up well. It did, like I say, it had that above average conversion, and if going forward, if you're sort of worried about, I do have this deck, is it, or I was thinking of building it, but I don't know if Pioneer's going on in this like unhealthy sort of, or not unhealthy, but like unfair kind of combo direction.
No, I agree. Unhealthy.
Unhealthy and unfair are not the same thing. But yeah, Mono Black seem to be doing pretty well against those combo decks. Like just going like, I'm just going to put pressure on them and try and throw a few spanners in the works, with Thought Seizers and so on early on, seem to actually be a really good game plan.
Yeah.
And I think the deck is well positioned going forward. And yeah, it appears to just be one of the format pillars.
Yeah, which I think is pretty good. I think that's nice to have as a kind of a benchmark to set like other decks around. A good honest aggro-y, mid-rangey mono black list.
Yeah, I do not think, that being said, I do not think this is the most powerful deck in the format.
No, I don't. Yeah.
It's also a known quantity. Anyone going into a Pioneer tournament, anyone, if you are playing in an event this weekend, for example, if you're playing F&M, you should have cards in your sideboard for this matchup, for dealing with mono black.
Because you probably are going to face it.
Yeah, I mean, just
if you're not
just
playing it. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, even then, have plans for the mirror.
Yeah, obviously, yeah. So
I don't really think there's much else to say really about mono black. Like, it's not like there's been really any spicy innovations and so on. Really to the deck since it last got talked about.
Yeah.
The deck has very much got this kind of pretty linear game plan that it's very good at executing.
Okay, so should we move on then to whatever's next? What have we got next on the list?
Yeah, so mono red aggro.
Okay,
so this one's a bit of a everyone kind of wrote this one off. No one really played it. It wasn't a highly played deck, the format. Although the people that did play it did very well. Now, this isn't the big red deck with glory bringers.
Yeah,
and
can I just take the floor for a second? Because you know what? I know that mono red deck. So there was like a chunky red deck they were calling it, which was just like your big red deck that's sort of leaning more on the kind of mid range, like 4 to 5 mana spells late game type thing.
Yeah,
that was big for a while actually before this tournament. That was pretty great. Awful garbage. Don't play
I'm inclined to agree.
This version of mono red, great. You know what? If you're playing a mono red deck, you want to be getting in under the opponent, getting in quick and fast, killing them, finishing them off with a few burn spells, play some quick aggressive creatures. The big thing that this deck did really was cut the stupid glory bringers out, get those out of here. Garbage, right? It put in more 1-mana threats and some burn spells. Soul Scar Mage, which I've got up on screen now. Really great addition to this deck. Helps attack through those stupid Sylvan Carotids that the Niv Mizzet players playing. Eventually, you get to actually just wear them down, so they can't just block it forever. Soul Scar Mage, 1-mana human wizard, 1/2 with prowess, and if a source you control would deal non-combat damage to a creature an opponent controls, put that many 1/1 counters on that creature instead. Which
-1/-1 counters, yeah.
Yeah.
Should point out.
Did I say -1 counters? Did I say +1 counters?
You said 1/1 counters.
Oh, 1/1 counters. Okay, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Okay, sorry. -1 counters. Big deal. You don't want to be putting +1 counters on your opponent's creatures because that would be pretty bad. But this combo's nice with Goblin Chain Whirler. Just put -1 counters on all your opponent's things.
Yeah. If you really want to go to town, have Torbrand in there as well.
Yeah. The curve kind of stopped at Torbrand. I think something of the thingy. Thane of Redfell.
Thane of Redfell.
Thane of Redfell. There it is.
Yeah. Torbrand, Thane of Redfell. So yeah, this deck was great actually. Packing just a load of low to the ground aggressive creatures meant that you put a real clock on the combo decks of the format, and what little control there was, and the mid range as well.
Yep.
Going Niv Mizzet, whatever, do your bring to light plan, but you're going to you're starting the game on whatever your game plan is that you're trying to execute it. You're going to be on 7 life by the time you get there, because I'm going to be clocking in with these Monastery Swift Spears and a load of burn spells directed at your face.
Mm-hmm.
And then for the aggro matchups, you've got a load of Chain Whirler Goblin Chain Whirlers.
Yeah.
They slice, they dice, they do it all, doing 1 damage to creatures your opponents control. What little creatures off their mono black deck that can actually block, like Gutterbones, for example, to tend to have 1 toughness. Yep. So you can just slice through them, pressure down planeswalkers and so on as well. Just that 1 incidental damage. 3 if you've got Torbrand out.
Yep, that becomes a little bit much,
Yeah, exactly. It provides that really quick aggressive clock that the format kind of needs.
Good wholesome magic right here.
Yeah,
I don't like losing to them drawing running burn spells either, but I'd rather lose to this than Lotus Breach just going off on turn 4 because they had a good draw.
I don't know, man. Torbrand feels real bad to get hit by.
Whatever, I don't care. I'd rather take damage to the face than just lose to a card that says you. I don't like cards that say you win the game. I think that's my real problem.
I think that's evident from your
cards that literally just have the
career
line
success at Magic.
Like, okay, that's funny. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I see what you did there. That's you're proud of yourself for that.
I am.
Yeah, nice. Thank you very much. But
I mean, we're both terrible.
No, cards that literally just say have the line of text "you win the game" on.
Yeah, no, I'm inclined to agree. It's much more like satisfying to have your like opponent look at their hand, look at your board state, and then concede because they can't do anything.
Yeah. Or just attack with a load of 1/1s that you've spent 4 mana apiece on each.
Yeah,
that's way better. Okay, yeah. I understand the contradiction here, but like, I don't know. That's just the way I feel. Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, no,
mono red, good deck, good wholesome aggro decks. Keeps things honest, keeps people fair, keeps people having to pack removal spells and life gain in their sideboard. You know.
Yeah. I think if you are going forward, and if your local meta is dominated by mono black and degenerate combo decks, then I think taking like mono red is exactly where you want to be.
Yeah. This has an aggro mirror. This has a great mono black matchup, right? Because they're pinging themselves with Castle Lochthwain and Thoughtseize, and all their creatures can't block, and most of them died, like you said, died to Goblin Chain Whirler, and like you like they do half the work for you, really. Like
I mean,
run them over.
Honestly, like everyone kind of forgot the Goblin Chain Whirler was a really good card, and like completely dominated standard, and warped standard around it for a while. And then all of these other kind of great kind of archetype staples kind of re-emerged from the past, and then sort of Goblin Chain Whirlers just sitting in the background like revving up, like it's my time to shine, boys. Mono red aggro, solid deck, did well at weekend, and I think it's going to be in a good place going forward. So
love that. Okay, so what have we got? What have we got next on the list? We must
we're sort of coming to the close of it now. So Bant Spirits is where we're at next. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so I mean, this was like essentially an Azorius Spirits deck that was like, why don't we stop playing a terrible deck and splash green for Collector Company?
Yeah,
that's it really. we're playing shit cards like Empyrean Eagle. Why don't we just play good cards like Collected Company to power out all these terrible three cost spirits that we're playing?
Yeah,
and bam, you got decent. Like, I've been surprised that Collector Company decks haven't really shown up all that much until this.
Yeah, likewise.
I was expecting, like, your classic pile of Bant creatures that have ETB effects that cost 3 mana and Llanowar Elves to, like, show up a bit more. Because it seems like on paper that those are the sort of decks that were around even in, like, Modern, here and there.
You've even got like Fibblethip and so on, so like you can collect a company and have it draw 2 and stuff.
Like sweet, like you got little things like that. You've got the elves to like power it out a little early, and then you've got all the staples of good like bank company cards like Reflector Mage, Spell Queller, Tireless Tracker. You've got all these kind of things. But no, it's just not really been around until now, and they've seemed to go like. Pros seem to have favoured taking the more like kind of tribal approach of playing Bant Spirits and having a bit more of a aggressive merfolky kind of game plan,
What I mean, you could even, if you're drawing the comparisons to modern decks, draw the comparison to Bant Spirits, actually.
Whoa. Yeah, I never thought of that.
Like the deck performed really well, like Bant Spirits. Like 71% of players that took it, I think, like converted to day 2 or something at GP Brussels. That may be a bit off. Packs a load of evasive threats, lords, some like minor like disruptive elements you've got in there as well, all like held together by that Collector Company so that you can bring 2 of them in at once out of like the top 6 cards of your library.
Mm-hmm.
At instant speed. Like the entire deck pretty much can play like with cards like
rattle chains that gives you other
rattle chains and so on. Rattle chains, spell queller, of course, itself having flash.
Spectral Sailor as well. So a couple of copies.
A total of 3 copies across the 2 top 8s, including 1 win for Bant Spirits. The deck seems really good, and I think that there is it's got that sort of density of good cards. There's a couple of kind of like
Empyrean Eagles in there.
Well, no, Empyrean Eagle's just a
it's just another
like,
lord. I get it. Yeah. But like, come on.
It does look bad on paper. You're like, but or if you didn't want to play Bant Spirits, if 71% conversion was too high for you, you could always play Azori Spirits, which had 21% conversion and is a bad deck for garbage people.
Yeah, you don't like that one, eh? Me neither.
No, why?
I think I agree with you. I think it's like, sure, you have to like make your mana a little more awkward, but like you don't really. It's not that bad. Like people are playing 5-color Niv Mizzet and it's fine.
Yeah,
you can splash you can splash green for collected because collected company's like the only main board green card anyway, right?
Yeah,
and then you open up like a ton of extra sideboard options, like a lot of extra sideboard options that are good by having the green there, and suddenly your garbage blue-white spirits deck is a good Bant Spirits deck. I'm totally on board with you. I think I'm amazed that Azorius Spirits has been the bigger deck than just like.
Yeah, I mean, I'm aware, like, saying this, that, like, I'm calling out a load of, like, pros that are, like, way better at the game.
Yeah, and, like, MTGO grinders who, like, play a ton and know what they're doing more than...
Yeah, and, like, people that have got the experience, but whatever, If
you're here for our opinion, right? Not good players' opinions.
We're guys on the internet.
Yeah, we know
what opinions.
We know what we're talking about, kind of.
We've held Magic the Gathering cards before. Yeah. We've seen them.
Oh, yeah, this ain't my first rodeo.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, okay. No, I haven't even been to a rodeo yet.
Basically, if you're gonna like pick a Spirits deck, play the Bant version with Collected Company. It's really good. You could build Azorius first if like budget's a constraint, and like it is still like a deck that is certainly passable, and then like build into the Collected Company version. Yep. But like I think that if you're looking to build the more powerful deck, I don't really think that there's any real incentive to be playing Azorius over Bant right now.
Yeah.
Nothing else to say about
that. So I suppose the last one we can kind of touch on that was, I mean, it's a bit lesser, but the Big Scissors. There was some copies floating around of Ensoul Artifact, which is...
It did fine?
Yeah, blue and a colorless for a enchantment. Enchanted Artifact is a creature with base power and toughness 5 in addition to its other types. So, you whack this on an Ornithopter, you've got a flying 5/5, you whack this on a Darksteel Citadel, you've got a indestructible 5/5. Whatever, like...
On a Bomat Courier, you got a hasty 5/5?
Yeah, it's just the deck plays a bunch of cheap artifacts that you can stick in Soul Artifact on.
And then, like, Shrapnel Blast and...
Yeah, Shrapnel Blast. Basically, the deck deals in 5s. Yeah, and that's it. It's looking to get you from... If you gain a life, their game plan is...
deal another 5 damage to you.
Yeah.
they try and count to 4, basically. That's what they do.
So, deck's decent. It's got some play to it.
I mean,
cool.
It seems good. Like, it did well. It wasn't like particularly heavily represented at either tournament in terms of like numbers. It did show up. It had an above average, rate of conversion today too. So like, that's a positive indication that the format, the deck is well, sort of placed amongst the others there and could easily show up. It's also quite a good budget option as well. Most of the cards are very cheap.
Yeah. Got the addition of Shadow Spear from the new set. Shadow Spear.
Yeah, the deck does look good. I think that I don't really have much to say because again, it hasn't really changed much with the advent of like Theros Beyond Death. There've been no real innovations.
It's not really. I wouldn't say it's like a tier 1 in this kind of field. It's not like your S tier kind of deck, but it's definitely like a strong like tier 2, A tier. I think. Yeah,
it's a known quantity. It's something that people are going to expect and so on. But piloted well and with the right configuration, right sideboard, I think that it can definitely be a real contender.
I think now, given the result of this PT, people tend to focus very much on like what top 8 and all these stuff, and Is It and So wasn't there. So I think if you want to kind of sneak in under the radar with something a little bit off of center, then like you could probably look at Is It in Soul as a very reasonable option. So
Yeah, I mean, especially with like the how available good artifact hate is. Obviously, nowhere near as available as it is in modern. But Affinity always did better the worse Affinity was doing. This is obviously so like if Affinity was showing up regularly in tournaments and so on, then there would be a natural kind of lull where it would stop doing as well because everyone would be expecting it, and so they would load up on Artifact Hate and Stony Silences and Ancient Grudges,
What have you, yeah.
And so they would just have this natural kind of boom and bust. And I think that there's going to be an element,
but they use the card boom bust.
What's that? Did destroy one land or destroy them all or something like that?
I have no idea. I just remember that there was a card called boom/bust, I think.
Yeah. Well, I'm testing my knowledge if I
wrong about
that correct off the top of my head. Yeah. So the deck seems to totally fine. Yeah. Just is it in Soul? It's a deck. Although it can
might have
really
made that card up.
Lose against it.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. I just looked it up and I think I might have made that card up.
Well, boom bust.
Yeah. Does it not actually? It might not even exist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sure it does.
Didn't mean to cut you off. Okay.
No, I was right. It's a red card.
Oh my god.
Boom bust. One on a red, destroy target land you control and target land you don't control. Bust is destroy all lands for 5 and a red.
Oh, okay. There you go.
I was almost right. Yeah. So yeah. Is it in Soul? Oh, and then finally, I guess we've touched on it a couple of times before, but Azorius Control.
Oh yeah. Oh, R.I.P.
Yeah,
is in the sideboard of Azorius Control.
24%. Oh, that was bad. Thank you. No, it's fine. 24% conversion, something like that. Made it just a below average performance, really, in a format filled with like resilient aggro decks and compact combo decks that can play through counter spells quite well or rip them out of the control player's hand.
Yeah.
The format's just too volatile, I think, for a proper configuration of Control. It's got a lot of powerful cards in it. I think that going forward, as the metagame begins to settle down, I think I see it still being a big contender.
Yeah. I think blue white remains like the traditional control deck to play.
Yes.
And I think you could probably still do all right with it because like people are still playing it on Magic Online. Supreme Verdict is remains good. Big and Little Teferi remain good. I think the deck's still like okay, but I think the Pro Tour was just or the Pro Tours were just very hostile environments for like Max said, hostile environments for blue white to show up. And also, you know what, this deck dirtles around hard. You're gonna go to time. Just the nature of control decks doesn't have a nice compact win like Inverter does. So.
Yeah, I mean that is unless you're packing Dream Trawlers.
Don't. I knew you were going to bring up Dream Trawler. Don't do it to me because look, Dream Trawler great in standard. Yeah, lovely, wonderful. I think Dream Trawler is not good enough to main deck in Pioneer. I think it's a great sideboard card for certain matchups, but I will not be playing Dream Trawler in the main deck of my Pioneer blue white control list.
Okay. That's the hill James Sharman is dying on. I'm pretty indifferent either way. I think it could be good enough. I'm not sure. So I've obviously got no horse in this race, but James does have the opportunity to win or lose big here. So if we are, if he is right in a few weeks' time, all at him and be like, hail the shaman.
6 mana, I could have a Torrential Gear Hulk.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that's probably where you want to be. I just have no strong feelings.
No strong feelings. Okay, yeah.
I mean, that's what people are really excited for with our a hot take podcast. Is like just people just like I have no strong feelings.
Yeah,
I am indifferent to.
Tell
this.
my wife I said hello.
I am generally neutral.
Yeah, like
Is It in Soul is a fine deck. But yeah, blue white control. I think. I don't think it's time to like sell your hero like Teferi Heroes of Dominaria absorbs quite yet. I think that shelve them for a few weeks. I think maybe if you do have the luxury of having multiple decks, play something else, play something a bit more aggressive. borrow a friend's deck if they've got it. Or, if you're gonna, sort of go Queensberry rules, be like James Sharman over here and be like, no, pilot it regardless. I will fight through. I will, learn. Be a pioneer. Embrace the spirit of the format.
I realized the other day I have 13 one-ofs currently in my blue-white control list.
Oh my god, it's Shaman Highlander.
Absolutely, yeah, it's
You're
absolutely
playing your own
ridiculous.
format over here.
And the more I look at I keep trying to cut them. I keep trying to cut the one-ofs and go like, okay, 2-ofs and 4-ofs, I stick to that. And then I look at my list on Scrowfall, and I'm like, don't want to cut that one off. That's pretty good. Don't want to cut that one. I don't want to cut that one. I want to keep the Sphinx's Revelation in here, and then I end up making no changes and carrying on.
Excellent.
I can't help myself. Do you know what? I have conceded. I was playing a one-off Render Silent in my 3-mana.
I bet you've conceded.
I'll have you know, sir, I am currently, I think, 12 wins and 1 loss with the list that I've put together with my stupid 13 one-off list.
Right. Well, I mean, we've got. We're recording this on the 7th of February. That is the Friday. I do believe there's another Pioneer event coming up this weekend. So
yeah,
fingers crossed, James Sharman's gonna take home the bacon.
Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah. Maybe not anytime soon. But those are kind of I think that's it for like the kind of the decks, and we want to start moving towards the close now. But Should we just rewind to our, is it last week's or whatever podcast where we talked about the ban list?
We should probably we should probably do that.
So we gave our predictions for what would be on the watch list, and I think it's fair to say we were maybe a little off base with given that how this weekend is kind of shaped up.
I would go further than that, and I would say that we couldn't have been more wrong.
Okay.
And both our calls for bans were not present at the weekend.
Well, okay, really. I will say Teferi was, but in Niv Mizzet, right?
Yes.
So
making that mid-range to control matchup even more unplayable for blue-white.
Lovely, yeah. So yeah, I called Teferi. Time Raveler was on the watch list. Max called. He called Elvish Mystic.
No, I'm pretty sure it was Thassa's Oracle. I said.
Yeah. Sure, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I mentioned Elvish Mystic,
which he was wrong about because it should have been Llanowar Elves, not. But we did that. We did that bit. So yeah.
Llanowar Elves is clearly the more.
There were no Llanowar Elves.
No,
Elvish Mystics like in top 8s.
Everyone's like, "What? Why pay 1 for a dork when you can play two for it instead and have it have hexproof with like Paradise Druid and Sylvan Caryatid?"
Yeah,
because that's the thing. The sort of the traditional sort of mono green and blue green decks have dropped off massively. Really, like there were copies of Elvish Mystic, there were copies of Llanowar Elves at the tournaments. It wasn't a complete washout, but in terms of how well they did, they didn't show up in any considerable numbers. So I think for the most part, watch this space, but the sort of the Green Menace appears to have been like whack-a-mole down.
Yeah, after they banned like 6 green cards, seems to have been brought back in line a touch. So going forward now, what do you want to call that? Is there anything that you want to call that? You think might now be kind of
well, I think if we go by past trends and let's say that we have been so far 100% incredibly incorrect, and so why not try and leverage that to our advantage and say, okay, I think Thassa's Oracle is a problem. Invert is too broken. Get rid of Thassa's Oracle. Because we can leverage how wrong I'm likely to be, and this weekend's tournament's going to roll around, and it's just going to get swept aside by like mono red and mono white. So I'm. But in all seriousness, talking about Thassa's Oracle, unless you wanted to briefly.
Well, I mean, I do think that Thassa's Oracle should be like looked at because it's popped up as the wing condition of 2 combo decks. And it just makes for a very like lean win the game option that is quite hard to interact with any deck that's not playing counter spells. which seems to be quite a lot of the format. I mean, even Dimmer Inverter wasn't really playing much counter magic, right?
No. It was had Drown in the Lock.
Had Drown in the Lock, right? So
board into mystical disputes and the like.
Yeah. So Thassa's Oracle, being effectively another 4 copies of a Jace Laboratory Maniac, except much cheaper. That can also just be played in the early game as a road bump that
it being a 1/3 that
scries 2 effectively, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like a card that says win the game on it like that and seems to be fairly easy to get to that clause. I think is worth very seriously keeping an eye on.
Yeah, I would like to think that. So I'm very much of the opinion that just because a format has a best deck doesn't necessarily mean that it's busted.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that it's certainly possible. I'm not fully on board the hype train of no, it's busted, it needs to go.
Yeah,
I can very much be. I'm firmly sitting on the fence. I continue to have no strong opinions.
Yeah, I don't. No, I kind of get where you're coming from though. I don't necessarily think Dimir Inverter is a completely busted deck or anything.
Mm-hmm.
I just think, I don't know, something about Thassa's Oracle, man. Something about it is a little fishy.
Oh, I like it. It is literally a little fishy. Okay, so Thassa's Oracle's 1. Do we have a second card or anything else that we might want to look at, or is that just kind of where we're at now?
I mean, Underworld Breach maybe is a card to keep your eye on, because I genuinely think that card is not doing anything fair or fun. But you've got Rest in Peace in the format, so
not only that, but I think we also got a load of really good graveyard hate options from Deros Beyond Death. We've got Damping Sphere in the format as well, which hates out that. So if that deck really does become, we've got all of these release valves that really do help deal with it. So we'll see.
I think I do think Thassa's Oracle primarily is the one to just keep an eye on it. I think there's got potential to be something. And you know what? If Dimir Inverter stays the top dog, because it's got quite a chunky percentage of the metagame share now.
Yeah.
I think if it stays the top dog and doesn't shift anywhere, that's when you want to start thinking you want to try and keep the format diverse, right? I mean, obviously it's going to get less diverse over time, but I don't know. I think you just want to keep eyes on it. So is there anything else then, or is that kind of...
No, I think that's just about everything. I think we've sort of gone over the big breakout star decks of the weekend. We've kept on sort of a couple of the old guard decks in Is It in Soul, Azorius Control, and Mono Black.
Mm-hmm.
Really I think we've laid the world to rights about sort of what people should be sort of looking at going forward.
Yeah.
So
overall format's looking reasonably healthy. Despite me obviously moaning and about some stuff.
Yeah, I think my big takeaway is that whilst the 5 out of 8 looks pretty scary for the top 8, and I think you mentioned it was quite ever present in the SCG event. Is that right?
A lot of, so they had a Team Trios event, and in the Pioneer seat there was a lot of Dimir Inverter mirrors, quite a lot. So
so I think that whilst it's very definitely a force to be reckoned with in the format, and underestimate it at your own peril. The data that we've got so far doesn't suggest that it's all-consuming, unbeatable.
Yeah.
So have that kind of hype with a little bit of salt.
I will have it with plenty of salt. Don't you worry about that.
The salt mines of Carthage are emptied out.
Okay, so to wrap it up, we'll go to our little recommendation section where we're just gonna throw out a piece of media, a film, a TV show, something that we've enjoyed we'd like to recommend. So what do you got for us this week, Max? Anything in particular?
Yeah, so I've been watching. I think it's like I feel like an old man, like an ITV like crime drama.
Okay.
It's called like White House.
Did you have it with your Mugaholics and your with your
No,
electric blanket as well?
I did have it with a mug of cuppa soup though, legit last night. So like, I'm kind of I'm there as an old man now.
Lovely.
Hold on, sorry. There we go. I'm there as an old man now.
Nice.
Yeah. So it's like it's I think 6-part. The 6th part has yet to air.
Mm-hmm.
But it's based on a set of real life murders that occurred. It's like a dramatization. Back in the 80s and so on, there was like a horrible crime that happened in like rural Essex, and this is just like talking about the ensuing police.
What's it called?
White House Farm.
White House Farm. Okay.
So if you're a UK resident, you can get it on like whatever like ITV on demand players called. I don't know, but the last episode airs on the 12th of this month, and it was one of those things that just caught me off guard. It's just one of those things that was like watching TV and then sort of watching it, it's like oh wow, this actually the sort of the actors in it are very talented. It's quite tightly scripted and so on. Definitely keeps you sort of guessing.
Yeah.
I won't give any spoilers away, but it's worth watching. And again, like Fleabag, it's not a big time investment either. Especially with this, it's only 6 episodes, 1 season, so you can watch it all in a day.
I will say murder mysteries, like those like older crappier murder mysteries, to some extent are a little bit of a guilty pleasure of mine. I've watched a few episodes of like Jonathan Creek and enjoyed it and felt bad about enjoying it, great. But like murder mysteries are fun. Knives Out was a great movie that came out recently. Like murder mysteries can be fun sometimes,
Yeah, well, check out if that's what you're interested in.
I'm not recommending that. That's not my recommendation.
But do check out White House Farm.
Okay, White House Farm. Mine is I'm a little bit behind the like lagging behind on this one recommending it, but I'm going to recommend a game. I'm going to recommend Hollow Knight, which I finished playing a few weeks ago after my partner got it for me for Christmas. It's quickly become one of my favorite games I've ever played.
Oh, really?
Yep. It's up there with like the Dark Souls series and Final Fantasy X and all that kind of stuff as like just like some of my absolute favorite games of all time. It's like a 2D action adventure exploration kind of game. It's pretty, it takes a lot of inspiration from Dark Souls. Combat's great, exploring it is great, the atmosphere is great, music, everything about it. It's got some little moments of kind of humor in it that are like very like kind of subtle in the background, but great, absolutely.
Is it a long playthrough? Is it something that is going to take?
I think my first playthrough of it took 20 something hours. I might be wrong. It might be 30 something hours, something like that. But the game is
so like a good chunk of like gameplay you're getting for your money then.
The game is ludicrously cheap especially if you get it on Steam. For the amount you get it comes with 4 free DLCs. That aren't enormous, except the last one, Godmaster, which adds just like a ton of extra stuff to do. And one of the boss fights in one of those DLCs has become like again one of my favorite bosses, like hands down, that I've like ever played in the game. So
oh wow,
I can't recommend anyone that will listen. I'm just like, let me tell you about Hollow Knight. Great game. So with that all that stuff, I think we're gonna wrap it up here. So we'll see you around. See you next time.
Yeah, in a bit, guys.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.